Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to talk about the acquisition of Markforged, Revo Labs, and how to get ready for the Christmas season. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by the Slant 3D, Etsy, and Shopify plugins. Coming into the Christmas season, a lot of 3D printing businesses can run into capacity constraints as more orders exceed the amount of production and number of machines that you have. But by using the Slant 3D, Etsy, or Shopify plugin, you can get access to hundreds of machines in order to fill up the capacity so that you don't have to shut down. So you can offload work immediately just by connecting that app, and any order that you want to come to us can come to us automatically. We will print and ship it directly to your customer for you in a white labeled box. So if you're having trouble getting ready for the Christmas season or do not want to be packing boxes for the rest of your life for the next 3 months, go ahead and check out the Slant 3D, Etsy, and Shopify plugins. All right, let's go ahead and go into the news. First bit of news, Revo Foods has opened a factory in Vienna, which it says is the world's largest 3D printing food facility. This is via 3dprint.com. The fungi-derived food will be made using 3D structuring technology, Revo's method for adding texture and bite to food. The company is calling the facility the Taste Factory, and it will begin shipping products today, October 3rd, 2024. The firm says the facility could produce up to 60 tons of fake salmon fillet per month. 3D printed foods. So 3D printed foods are really interesting because they are... Printing allows you to put structure into foods that would otherwise be a monolithic type of blob. So like lab-grown meats and that kind of thing, you can get the meat, you can get musculature grown in a petri dish, but it's this blob of meat and it doesn't have texture and flavor and marbling or any of the rest of it. Printing helps to enable this because you can now actually embed veins and musculature and fat and the rest of this kind of stuff into the meat so that you actually have something that feels like a steak or feels like a salmon fillet. The fungi-based material mimics fat and texture of other eating experiences. In this case, they aim to make the product flake and behave like salmon fillet. Fillet. But they're going through, they're ordering it up. It looks okay from the photos. We should, one of these days we will update our podcasting and I'll be able to throw stuff up on screen or do a screen share. But CEO Robin Simza says, with the Taste Factory, we are showcasing that this technology works on an industrial scale. This enables a new generation of food innovations with 3D structuring. We can create entirely new textures and using simple but nutrient-rich ingredients like mycelium, creating products that are just so much more exciting. So, the challenge with 3D printed foods has always been scale. It's not that hard to solve. The way they seem to be going about it is basically a multi-head extruder where you have like 10 along that will all grow several steaks at once. So it's a good application. It is tough because you're growing a food, a wet food, out in open air, so keeping the whole place clean and pathogen-free is a challenge. It's not an unsolvable challenge at all. I mean, food paste has been moved around forever. Go visit a hot dog factory. But the printing is a little bit more challenging because you have the whole food sitting there kind of in open air as it's being grown. So that's a challenge with this. But the value of it, as far as creating kind of optimized foods now, rather than hoping you grew a cow correctly with the right amount of marbling and having to pick out like the prime cuts and that kind of stuff, printing would enable the creation of very bespoke food where it's like, we have this much marbling inside of it, so it tastes exactly like this every time. So it helps improve food consistency because now you're able to make the proteins that are very consistent and very reliable. So yeah, that's all a part of it. Okay, explained. Nano Dimensions acquisition of Markforged. So, Nano Dimension acquired Markforged a couple weeks after they acquired Desktop Metal. Nano Dimension, with all these acquisitions, is going to rebrand as a new company effectively, because they are effectively a new company now. It's like 3 startups together. Basically, all the public 3D printing companies have all joined hands together because none of them could get acquired or close a deal with Stratasys or 3D Systems. But they are paying $115 million for Markforged. This is also very prescient because last week we talked about Markforged closing a deal with Continuous Composites for $25 million to settle a legal dispute. So that had to be done. That's probably why they settled right now, is to just get it off the books so that they were clean for the acquisition. And we're like, there's no lawsuits hanging over our heads. We're good to go. But post-acquisition, Nano Dimension, Desktop Metal, and Markforged are expected to achieve a combined revenue of $340 million. And by the way, none of those companies are profitable with that revenue generation. Let's see, can I talk about... Yeah, Markforged has 15,000 installed machines, which is way lower than I kind of expected. I know Markforged has always been kind of the premium machine, but I thought there would have been more of their machines out there. Because again, we talked about this at 3D printer market a week or two ago, but there's about 1 million to probably this year 1 to 2 million consumer-sized 3D printers shipped every Christmas. But these industrial machines, and Markforged is an industrial machine, but they're like $2,000 to $5,000 for the lower cost ones. 15,000 of those is not a ton of machine, or not a ton of revenue and not a ton of machines, and that's not that expensive when you've had machines like Ultimaker around for years. Though at the same time, I do not know what Ultimaker's install base is. I would expect it to be way higher than that, but maybe they have never cracked 1 million. If Markforged has done 15,000 and Ultimaker's been around for freaking 10 years, 10, 20, 12 years, good heavens, 14 years. Wow. Anyhow, the Ultimaker should have more than 1 million, but they might only be in the hundreds of thousands of machines shipped too, because they're that higher level kind of premium machine. Prusa, we know, has crossed 1 million, I believe, total in lifespan. But they're also arguably a larger company than Ultimaker. So I don't know how to infer where all this lands of how many machines have been moved overall. But generally, whenever we're doing the math on it, we presume there's about 1 million active 3D printing users in the world. Yes, there's all the people with hobby machines and gifts and that kind of stuff, but those machines end up in the garage and unused after a while. So even though there's 1 to 2 million of them sold in a Christmas, maybe 100 to 500,000 of them actually go and become a hobby user in some kind of a way. Many of those machines are repeat purchases, another machine for your 3D printing husband gift kind of thing, that kind of stuff. So it's just it doesn't have the growth in user base that I think many people realize. Had a big old spike in it because of Bamboo over the last couple of years, because it's just been so easy to enter now, and it's been spreading to people outside of like the 3D printing group. So there's more growth coming there. But anyhow, Nano Dimension, Markforged, and Desktop Metal are all one company now, and they're all going to combine. They're going to have $40 million in revenue. That should make them, well, actually, their combined overall value right now, I think, would be about $1.5 billion based on their public valuations. 1.5, though on a revenue basis inside of 3D printing, you would generally see at least a 5x multiple. Well, that would be 1.5 on 340 million for a 5x multiple of revenue, which isn't unreasonable. We'll see. The thing is that company is going to continue to lose money, and because Nano Dimension is not profitable, Desktop Metal certainly not profitable, Markforged has not been profitable. There's a lot of cleanup, and that consolidation will help because you eliminate a lot of redundancies. I mean, quite frankly, you don't need a legal team and an accounting team for each one of those companies, and they're going to be in a hurry to clean it up. After these acquisitions, I don't know if it's for cash or for stock, probably for stock in order to keep the cash available. But Nano Dimension has about $600 million left in cash, but they'll be burning about $100 million a year from unprofitability here right at the start, if not more. So we'll see. And actually probably more, because in the acquisition there's exits and payoffs and buyouts and all the rest of this kind of stuff that has to happen. Legal fees shouldn't be that much, but in comparison to the size of the deals, but they're there. But yeah, interesting. The consolidation, this everybody's talked about the 3D printing market needing to consolidate and people going out of business and that kind of stuff. In the public space, we've definitely seen it, because I think there were like the 10 or 12 publicly traded 3D printing companies, and Big Rep rejoined them here just a few weeks ago. But now there's might be like 5 left over, because Voxel Jet effectively has fallen off as of a couple weeks ago. Nano Dimension, Markforged, Desktop are all now one company. 3D Systems and Stratasys remain. Like, there's just not that much that can be done from there. There's not many publicly traded 3D printing companies anymore. There's a few waiting in the wings that are going to be interesting, like Icon and Formlabs, who talk a big game. Icon certainly isn't profitable or not generating enough revenue, but they're growing quickly, and they got $120 million in investment. So they got invested in at the rate that Markforged just got bought out for. So that's going to all be interesting. Going to Formlabs. Formlabs has been around a long time and has been an astute company. I would be interested to know operationally. I can't guess, but Formlabs always seemed very similar to Markforged to me, and the fact that they're down the street from each other is a big part of this. They're both Boston-based companies. But the profitability of Formlabs, I don't know. I would imagine that they might be more profitable, because they've always been scrappy, starting out with Kickstarter, scaling up from there. They have a wider user base. They've had well-priced materials and machines, but they have been more expensive. So I don't know what their install units are, or their install bases. But moving on to the new thing. All right. World's first 3D printed hotel rises in the Texas desert. This is per New Atlas. Following its reveal earlier this year, architecture firm Icon now busy constructing its ambitious El Cosmico campground hotel project in the Texas desert. Built as the world's first 3D printed hotel, it will include camping areas, vacation homes, and shared amenities, plus permanent Starchitect designed residences for sale too. Created in collaboration with high-profile firm Bjark Ingels Group, El Comico is a dramatic expansion of reimagining. Yeah, they're making a campground with a bunch of 3D printed houses inside of it. These homes will be up for sale starting at a cool $2.29 million. Additionally, there will be some affordable 3D printed housing for the local community, including some that are being chosen following a worldwide design competition hosted by Icon. So yes, this is basically another demonstration. Icon has built a number of neighborhoods, built a lot of houses, built a lot of low-income housing, but they're kind of in this experimental phase where they're trying to figure out how to make 3D printed constructions. So they have to do... There's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. And in The Innovator's Dilemma, Christensen discusses how new technologies very often have to come kind of bottom up. And he uses the references of steel foundries, where for a long time, steel was made from raw iron ore, just brought in from the mine. But then these small smelting plants started using waste steel and leftover steel to create low-grade rebar. And the entire industry said, blah, blah, who cares about them? They're just making rebar, whatever, and their process can't make anything better. Well, those little small smelting plants, which were really efficient because they had a higher quality ore coming in waste steel, they couldn't make good rebar at first. They would stuffy bearing concrete, but then they got better and better and better, and then they started making real steel, and they started coming up from underneath the larger steel foundries and eating away at their products until now, pretty much all steel production are these smaller, more flexible types of plants that use a lot of recycled steel because there's enough of it in the world, but they're also able to use some ore. But this is effectively what is happening with 3D printing. We take this model both here at 3D Printing, and Icon is following this. Low-income housing is a low-risk demonstration of housing. To be fair, the new house costs $2.29 million, so they're coming from both directions. They're going to do some low-income housing on a campground to show we can make houses and have another place where people can experience the houses and not be scared of them. But anybody who is ready for the house can buy a top-ground, new tech 3D printed house, which is quite expensive. But there's some interior design benefits from here. Once you see the benefit of it, you can understand why you could bill that much for it. But they're going basically from both directions. So really premium, high-tech house and low-grade demonstration houses that are like one-room camping huts that they can demonstrate the technology with and keep on improving it with. Because they need to build houses in order to prove out that their new machines are working. So given the option of building demo houses inside their factory and just building real houses out in the world, they should opt for building real houses out in the world. And they're doing that. So good for them. But beyond that, yeah, the 3D printed houses have a lot of room to run because just labor shortages and that kind of thing. But okay, that's it for the news. Good batch of news this week. A lot of stuff going on. Product updates. So, Tangled, Etsy, and Shopify plugin are both active. The Shopify plugin, the guys have been working on it for the last week. We got a bunch of good feedback from initial launch. A bunch of updates have been pushed to it, so it's just a little bit easier to use. Also, the Slant print on demand channel is active, and we've started posting tutorials and that kind of thing over there. They are also going to start being posted on the slantpod.com website. We're taking all of the print on demand, Etsy, Shopify kind of expertise and separating it off from the core Slant 3D stuff. Because like the Slant 3D channel and the Slant 3D website are both very engineering focused and around mass production 3D printing. But the print on demand business model, where I have an Etsy store, I have a Shopify store, I'm a YouTuber and I want to do merchandise that's print on demand, that whole conversation is different. And there's more resources needed for it that just don't go well on this channel because you guys won't click on it if it's not a design for it video. So the discussions about Facebook ads, around how to build a website, how to market 3D printed products, how to use the apps and the plugins, all of those are going over to the Slant Print on Demand YouTube channel. That is the name, Slant Print on Demand. And we currently have live and active slantpod.com. Pongo, Octa, Delta. I know I did those phonetics wrong, but nobody ever uses O for anything in the phonetic alphabet. But the slantpod.com is open. Baseline is there. We're working on getting all the tutorials moved over as quickly as we can so that those resources are there. But yeah, those products, we're making sure that we're having capacity reserved for them because here at the Christmas season, smaller print farms and folks who are just starting up are very often shocked by the amount of demand. And there's a really high ratio of Etsy stores that go on vacation during Christmas. And not only do you miss out on that 2 to 4 weeks of Christmas because you have Black Friday. Black Friday is a huge spike on places like Etsy and everywhere else. But that overloads so many people, and then they shut down like the first week of December. And then you lose those last 3 weeks before Christmas, 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas. And then when you finally do turn back on in like mid-January, Etsy says, oh, you were on vacation? Well, we're not going to send new sales to you because you're just back from vacation getting warmed up. So you lose more weeks in time from turning off and turning back on from Etsy just punishing you. So we're hoping that these plugins will allow more Etsy and Shopify stores to stay alive and active during that time so that you can get more sales through by leveraging our capacity. That's what that's for. That's a problem we're trying to solve so that more people can grow their businesses without having this stop and go thing. We can be a mediator and an overflow for folks. So yeah, there's all that. But yeah, the Etsy and the Shopify, both optimized. Etsy is running very, very well. The Shopify has a couple of small bugs in like the UI in the front. But they don't hurt anything. They're just kind of irritations. So we've been polishing that a little bit as people give us feedback. And then Tangled. Tangled is shut down until January. Any orders that came up through to, I'm going to say October 2nd because we let people overflow for just a moment. But any orders up through then will be shipping. But we will not be taking any new orders from now until January. Tangled will effectively relaunch and wake back up in January, and we have a bunch of cool announcements coming with that. A bunch of restructuring of Tangled is coming down the pipe to where we're very excited about where that's going and what that's going to be here in the new year. Not only around material costs, but a number of other things. But yeah, Tangled is shut down here for a bit because in the context of what we do, our job is to run a print farm. So we can't have Tangled distracting us from the Etsy and Shopify users and our production clients who need work done right now. So we're running through all of that stuff. API, Etsy, Tangled, Shopify, API. The API, number of users have come on. Obviously, we released pet Gs on there, both black and white. So those are active and live. Big old influx of orders on those, so they're taking a little bit longer to fulfill on the first time around. And by a little bit longer, I mean like 4 to 5 days. But we're getting that back down into the 3-day stuff as we get through that initial launch backlog effectively. And that flow of the first week or two of people using it and trying it out. Thank you so much to everybody who's been trying it out. It's been really neat to see. Like I say, we're continuing to build out more capacity. Literally yesterday, another 20 machines were plugged in and that kind of stuff, and we keep on cranking out more. So yeah, we're making sure that we don't drop the ball for anybody, because the thing that's scary for us going into Christmas season is the fact that we have hundreds of Etsy stores plugged into us, and we got to make sure that we're delivering for all of you guys. So we're taking that super, super seriously. There is a worst case scenario, super bluntly, where we do have to start extending lead times after like that Black Friday rush, because it's just an enormous amount of demand. And we may not have scoped it appropriately. We have about 2 years of historical like Etsy and Shopify experience from other users who have been clients. But still not on this same scale that we're doing this time around. And we've prepped for it. We've done all the math for it. We're doing all the thinking and preparation that we possibly can. But we don't know what could go wrong, or well, actually, what could go radically right to where we're just inundated. But we will be very transparent about it. We will let folks know if Etsy fulfillment times and Shopify fulfillment times need to extend. And we'll keep everyone updated about that. Okay, let's see what else. But yeah, preparation for Christmas. This is the discussion topic kind of the day. In the context of selling on Etsy, many people are not ready for Christmas because they believe that Christmas starts when sales start increasing, and it starts way before that. Like our Christmas season started about 2 weeks ago, and technically it started like 6 months ago. If you are looking for mass production, you need to prepare for Christmas 2 quarters ahead of Christmas. Otherwise, you just can't get in line. There's not capacity for you. Right now, in like the October season, everybody's like, oh, we need to get ready for Christmas because it's coming up here soon. So that's a point when manufacturers like us get inundated with requests, and we're not able to respond to them all because there's just not enough bandwidth. And yeah, it's frustrating to us because there's like, frankly, money on the table that is going off to the side. But we cannot shirk our responsibilities with our existing clientele, or the first come, first serve clientele at the very least, in order to chase more stuff, because then just everybody ends up being ticked at us because everybody gets parts late. So this is notification too late that you need to prepare for Christmas back in the summer. But if you are right now preparing for Christmas, or if you are right now have not started preparing for Christmas, you need to get ready. Purchase material, because here at running a 3D printing, print-on-demand business or anything else, the things that are going to whack you are you're going to run out of material, you're going to run out of people, and just human time, because you're going to be inundated with post-processing and packing. And yeah, you're going to have more demand than you probably expect. Etsy, if you're selling on Etsy particularly, there's a huge spike in demand on Etsy. Starting on November 1st, literally Etsy flips a switch. And however many orders you did on October 31st, you're going to do double that on November 1st. And then it ramps. Then you get to Black Friday. And whether you run a sale or not, all of this, again, is contextualized to Etsy because that's where I have real hard data on. This applies to the other places as well, though, too, depending on how you operate your business. It's just Etsy is an organization that runs in a certain way, and Shopify is dependent on how you run your ads. So we're going to focus on Etsy because your ads are case dependent. But Etsy, on Black Friday, regardless of if you have a sale or not, since Etsy has so many handmade sellers on there, those sellers, Etsy has to distribute the demand across all of them. Otherwise, they cannot deliver a product to the buyers who are on the platform. So everybody gets light shined on them if they're available at that time. So huge spike on Black Friday, regardless of where your store is. Make sure you're turned on. Make sure you have ads turned on, all that kind of stuff. Do not necessarily have to run a sale. I have even seen people increase prices on Black Friday just to mediate demand or take more money off the table. You get to Black Friday. Very often, first week of December, a bunch of people who have like home print farms and that kind of stuff will go on vacation because they just can't keep up with demand, or lead times are out past Christmas. They're like, we'll take new orders, but it's not shipping until January 1st, and then you lose sales because people want a Christmas gift. So preparing for all of that is a thing. If you have commonly sold or popular items, store up inventory of those because there's going to be more of them sold. And consider exterior resources wherever you can. Again, this is kind of one of the main reasons that we built like the Etsy and the Shopify plugin. So it's really easy for people, not for us to like take over the store, but to do overflow. Where if your print farm is not able to keep up, then you're able to offload that demand to Slant 3D, and we can print and ship those items for you. Now, the challenge with this is making sure that your items are ready for that, because we use different printers than you do, probably. So doing qualification prints and test prints and stuff here early on is something to be done there that I would warn you about, because you don't know. We've had people be like, oh, you use textured beds. We don't want textured beds. So that comes up. They're like, we use glass base, or we use this texture, or whatever it was, and it's really critical to the product. If that's the case, you need to verify it and find out what other stuff is in. And verify pricing and yada, 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 and colors and materials and all the rest of it. Right now we have 7 PLA colors and 2 PETG colors on all of the applications. So those are all there. But just make sure that in Christmas you're preparing appropriately. Don't wait until you have the problem to solve and prepare for the problem, because you're going to run out of material, and then Amazon isn't going to have any for sale because everybody else ran out of material. And then you're going to run out of machine capacity, and you'll have to put your store on vacation. You might burn out or get sick or something else, and you run out of people, and then you can't ship products on time. All of these things are things that come down that can't be solved in the moment. So prepare a little bit up front. This doesn't mean go buy a whole mess of inventory of stuff, but build a little bit of buffer volume. Make sure you have a few more spools than you have. And if that inventory and those kind of things scare you, just think about it as like an annual basis. I'm going to buy all the filament I need for the year right now before Christmas. That way I definitely have enough for Christmas, or maybe just for the next 6 months. And you can look at the previous year and say, this is how much I sold. This is how much material I needed. That's how much I need to store. And then look at your analytics from last Christmas if you're able to. If you're a new store, you don't get this. But if you're a brand new store, the growth is, whatever sales you had on 31st, double on the November 1st, and then on Black Friday, generally you have about 10x daily sales on Black Friday if you have a good, reasonable product. And then it tapers off from Black Friday throughout December, kind of maybe levels a little bit. You have a growth up to Black Friday, then it drops a little bit and stays flat until about the first or second week of December. And then second week of December, just as Christmas sellers are kind of done because most people are responsible and have purchased their gifts already. The last week before December, if you are still have capacity and are able to do it, do overnight shipping. We will not be doing overnight Well, I shouldn't say that. Depending on where we are with capacity, we may release overnight shipping options on the Etsy and Shopify plugins, depending on where we are. But that's not a formal announcement. That's a possibility depending on where we are. Right now, yes, we're just making sure we have enough machinery and material and all the rest of it to make sure we're supporting all of you guys based on the historical data that we've seen. So we're doing all our projections, making sure we're ready to go and making sure we're doing what needs done. To make sure everybody's happy. But okay, well, that's that. We're going to leave it there. It's going to be back to a shorter type of show. Comment down below if there's any kind of topics or questions that you want us to cover. And check out the plugins because they're actually pretty cool and can be useful to you, especially here as the rush comes on, just as a backup. But hey, if you're building a whole new Etsy store and you just don't want to sell on Etsy, but now you can because you don't have to run a print farm and ship boxes out. Check them out then too. Alrighty, have a great day, everybody.